Hello, everyone. How are you today? Amazing. Raise your hands if you're doing better than the average person in this room today. Actually, about 50%. OK, you guys are well calibrated. So Ethereum in 30 minutes. So Ethereum in one sentence. So who here remembers FTX? Raise your hand if you remember FTX. Raise your hand if you remember Mt. Gox. OK, still a lot of people. Now, I don't know. I actually don't really have too many negative feelings toward Mark Karpel as the person for Mt. Gox. I think he made a huge mistake, but if you look at every single piece of his behavior after it, I thought he's been actually doing a good job of learning from it, adapting, working on positive sum security things. But FTX, I just think it's a perfect example of what you do if you take Ethereum's principles and then literally rotate them 180 degrees, right? And I'm not the one putting his face up there. Every single FTX ad has SBF's face as the single most prominent feature by a factor of 5. So Ethereum in one sentence, it's not whatever this is. So Ethereum in a few bullet points, right? Basically, centralized trust going to anyone can verify, right? So FTX was a centralized exchange, and people put huge amounts of money into it. There was absolutely no way to verify whether or not FTX was even solvent. And of course, it eventually turned out that FTX was not solvent. Don't be evil to can't be evil. So don't be evil, it was this famous idealistic slogan of Google in the early days, especially when Google was a smaller company. It was this company that seems to really genuinely pride itself on being a positive sum. And of course, as Google grew, a lot of those positive values really started to fall away over time. And then famously, the motto was formally retired sometime in the last decade. And I think it's something much more banal, do the right thing now, right? So the approach of the previous generation and the approach of which we've already seen a lot of consequences is when you go out and shout, trust me because I'm the good guy. The point of decentralized technology, the point of blockchains, is that you do not have to trust them. Another big difference, I build for you versus we build for each other. I think, I'm in on crypto because I want to make an impact, right? And there's this really subtle difference between a company and a community that I think is really super important, right? And actually one other example of this that comes to mind is one that I hesitate to criticize because I actually think it's very innovative and there's a lot of positives to it, but Estonian e-residency. Who here remembers Estonian e-residency? So Estonian e-residency, this e-government thing that was very far ahead of its time, right? And it lets you digitally open a bank account, it lets you digitally vote, it lets you digitally do a lot of e-government things. But one of the more idealistic visions that I remember that project having is this idea that Estonia can expand to be this digital nation, and e-Estonia can be much bigger than physical Estonia with its 1.3 million residents, right? And the challenge is that this kind of misunderstands what is a real community, right? e-Estonia was extremely successful as a service provider, as a hub and spoke structure. You have an entity in the center, Estonian government, that's providing services. Those services are hugely valuable. They're actually very helpful for a lot of people scattered around the world to get EU bank accounts, for example. But it's not a community. The difference between a company and a community is a company is a hub and spoke structure. There's a thing at the center that does stuff and collects money. A community is everyone or very large number of people that are all doing things for each other. It's open not just in the open AI sense of open, where there's an open API and you can go use it. It's not even open in the sense of like a lot of open LLM work where you can just like go download this like fixed blob of like BF16 values. It's open in like this full stack way where it's like really open not just to consumption but also to creation. Also, currying favor with politicians becomes credible neutrality and freedom, right? Ethereum as a global network that is here for the world, that is here to protect people's freedom in the world, and that is not there to try to like make friends with like one particular company or one particular superpower or something else, and like to the detriment of everyone else. Now, we do believe in the global thing. Now, if you think the word global is like too soy or whatever, you can also use the word cosmolocal. There's a lot of different words, but we are here to impact the world. So let's get to Ethereum, the world computer, right? So Ethereum is a global, open, censorship-resistant platform for building decentralized applications. So this is like the simplest diagram of Ethereum that you can have, right? Basically, now it's a blockchain. Now, you might have guessed that a blockchain is a chain made out of things called blocks, and you would be right. And every 12 seconds, a new block comes, and every block contains a bunch of transactions. And the blockchain processes about a little bit under 2 million transactions a day. I think with the gas limit going up, it'll soon go above 2 million. And then there's this consensus mechanism, right? Before it was proof of work, now it's proof of stake. And basically, the job of the blockchain is it's this thing where anyone as a user can send transactions, which are basically instructions saying this is what I want to do. And the blockchain ensures that everyone agrees what happened, like which transactions were sent, and in what order. Now, the main difference between Ethereum and what came before Ethereum is the programmability, right? Blockchains before Ethereum, they were either single-purpose protocols, so they were just meant for one particular application, or they were what I call Swiss Army knife protocols, right? Protocols where the developers say, here are 14 different applications, and we're going to create 14 different transaction types to support each one. And then if someone somewhere discovers a 15th application, well, we have to hard fork the protocol. Ethereum instead embraces programmability. So whatever application you want to make, you can upload a computer program, and for historical reasons that have to do with like Nick Szabo and early crypto and like blah, 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 and like you can look it up. These programs are called contracts or smart contracts, but it's a lot of people, like especially people in the legal profession get confused by the word contract, so just know that contract is a technical term. I mean, if you're a developer, like promise is a technical term in JavaScript, like contract is a technical term here, right? And you upload computer programs to chain, and these computer programs automatically run when users send a transaction to interact with them, right? So at a technical level, this is basically what it is, right? So it's the world computer, not in the sense of being a computer that is literally big enough to host all of the world's computation, including all of the crazy LLM inference and all of the crazy cat video generation. It's a computer that is limited in its scale, but that is designed for global consensus, that is designed for extreme robustness and decentralization, and the ability of anyone, anywhere in the world to trust that it will keep working exactly as programmed. So what are blockchains good for, right? I think obviously, the original category and still, the biggest category, payments and financial applications, right? So Bitcoin, the first blockchain, was born as peer-to-peer electronic digital cash. And even in Ethereum, if you look at the Ethereum white paper, there is this list of applications that motivated Ethereum. And about something like half of them, maybe a bit more than half, different kinds of finance. There is issuing assets, exchanging between assets, doing like financial derivatives, even things like prediction markets, also DAOs, right, decentralized autonomous organizations, systems where you basically take the rules of an organization like a company, you encode the rules on chain, and then those rules directly control whatever assets the organization has. So blockchains tend to be good for these things, and one of the ways that this often gets talked about is blockchains solve the double spending problem, right? So the double spending problem is, it's this term that you'll hear, especially if you look at sort of the deep lore of how this space came to be. And the core idea is, well, why do we need this concept of agreement, right? Why do we need this concept of like, let's have these proof of stake nodes that are voting on what came in what order? And you ask, well, what if we didn't have consensus, right? What if we just had a decentralized network, like something like BitTorrent, right? You can upload a file on BitTorrent, whoever wants to upload it can download it. You can even have those files contain programs. You can even like add a sidecar that automatically runs those programs. The easiest problem to understand for why that kind of thing is not good enough for money is this double spending problem, right? The problem basically is, imagine I have 1 ETH, and I send 0.7 ETH to someone over there, and then I send that transaction, I broadcast it, and then at the same time, I send another transaction that sends 0.7 ETH to someone over there. In total, I've turned 1 ETH into 1.4 ETH. If people can do this, then you hyperinflate ETH, and the value of ETH goes to 0. Who here wants the value of ETH to go to 0? Okay, no raised hands. That's good to see. So if you don't want it to be possible to do that, you need some way of adjudicating which transaction came first, and that's what a blockchain does. Now, blockchains are also useful beyond finance, so probably your most successful non-financial application is ENS, which I'm sure you'll hear about in various places this week. So you can own your own name, basically. You can go and get a domain. So I have Vitalik.eth. You can go register something else .eth that has not been taken, and this is like a username that gets seen as your username across a whole bunch of different Ethereum applications, and it's not controlled by any one service provider, right? So it's not like a Google account or like a government-issued name or like some other kind of ID. Then blockchains give you strong guarantees of the ability to participate, right? So blockchains give you a strong guarantee that if you send a transaction and the transaction is valid, so it follows the rules of the protocol, then it will be very quickly included. This, and not just it will be included, but it will be included quite quickly. This is also called censorship resistance. It's valuable for a lot of things. So it's useful, for example, in finance, right? So it's useful to prevent market manipulation. If some major event happens, you do not want the operator to be able to like censor all of the people that are selling and only allow the people that are buying. That would be a great way to create more bubbles. It's useful in voting. You don't want to censor people who are voting the wrong way. Blockchains are also good for what I call proof of inexistence, right? So proof that only a limited amount of something was issued. So if you want to issue 1,000, like stamps, or like saying that someone is part of your community, you can prove that you only issued 1,000 and not that you issued 10 million. And so you can prove you're not kind of secretly holding a bunch of these identities yourself. Also, a proof that something was not made before some particular point in time, or of course, on the other side, a proof that something was made before some point in time. And this is useful for like video authentication and various other use cases. So blockchains, there's this are a diverse tool. Financial applications, also this other interesting long tail to it. I think both sides are valuable. Now, what are blockchains alone not good for? One, privacy. So Zuko famously, from Zcash, he calls Bitcoin Twitter for your bank account. And who here wants like all of your financial transactions to like automatically get turned into tweets? Okay, no raised hands, right? But the thing you have to realize is that if you send transactions on the blockchain and they're not private, like actually if someone was motivated, they totally could make a Twitter bot that just automatically waits for you to send a transaction, like LLM analyzes it, tries to figure out who you sent it to, and then makes a tweet. So it's like actually less far from Twitter for a bank account than you think. And blockchains are not good for extreme scalability, right? So if you want to run a program that LLM generates a cat picture on Ethereum, it'll probably take you like millions of dollars of transaction fees to do it. Blockchains alone, not good for low latency. This is an inherent cost of decentralization. If you want a system that is geographically decentralized and neutral that the world can participate in, that's not something that can have 50 millisecond latency, because if it does, then all of the activity just gets concentrated in one city. Access to real world information. So this is like often when people hear the word smart contracts, they immediately think, oh, does this mean that we can immediately do legal contracts on Ethereum? And Ethereum does not solve the biggest trust problem there, right? Which is like, you still need someone to tell you the information. Like, if there's a payment that's conditional on something happening, like the information of did that thing actually happen? So blockchains can be combined with other objects or gadgets to achieve some of these goals. But for blockchains alone, these areas are weaknesses. Now, Ethereum is part of a larger story. So this picture is from Gavin Wood back in 2015. And there was this early vision, this vision of Web3, right? This vision that Ethereum is part of a suite of technologies that together create a more free and open internet. And blockchains are great for one piece of this puzzle. But back in 2015, there were also these sister protocols that were being worked on. Actually, both of them still are worked on, right? So Swarm, which basically does distributed storage of data where the size of the data is too large to go on a chain that everyone downloads. And then Whisper, which is a off-chain peer-to-peer messaging protocol where you don't care about consensus. And if you don't care about consensus, you don't have to pay transaction fees. The whole thing is just a lot simpler and a lot cheaper. Now, these protocols are still being worked on, right? So Whisper has become Waku, and it's actually being used in a bunch of privacy protocols and messengers and various other things. And Swarm team is around, and then also IPFS is being used a lot. So these things still exist, right? But I think one of the big things that's happened is that the larger story has kind of expanded quite a bit, right? And to me, the larger story is that there's this category of technology that's called cryptography. And cryptography enables collaboration at scale without centralized trust. Cryptography, the most basic form is things like encryption and things like signing. Encryption, it allows you right now to talk to your friends in foreign countries 10,000 kilometers away without anyone in the middle being able to see what messages you're sending. You're able to use other people's infrastructure to make it possible for your messages to get 10,000 kilometers across without the people running that infrastructure being able to see what you're doing. Signatures, they allow you to verify, right? So they allow you to see, well, is the message you're getting actually from the person who it's claiming to be? Recently, we've been seeing this growth of programmable cryptography, this much more advanced form of cryptography where not only can you encrypt information and sign information, but you can do entire computations over encrypted data. You can generate cryptographic proofs over encrypted data. You can prove things about data that you have without even revealing that data. You can do computations that combine multiple people's data. You can take programs that contain your data and only do a specific set of things with it. So that's obfuscation. That's still a little, like, quite far away, but much less far away than it was 10 years ago. So there's this like whole suite of tools, right, that let you do a lot of these things that enable collaboration at large scale without people needing to trust centralized actors. And blockchains are, in a lot of ways, really complementary to this. And some of the most advanced applications that you'll hear about this week, a lot of them already use a combination of blockchains and things like ZKPs and FHE. So one plug, DAC Day, a lot of the happening in a couple of days, so we'll have some interesting demos. This is one of my favorites, is this air quality monitor that collects information about the environment, and the newest version actually uses some of these advanced technologies to create a data set that can be used for science, but that at the same time is privacy preserving so that it does not reveal any compromising information about individual people. So these are things that are like actually possible to do today. So what's in Ethereum's future? So I think the high-level goals here, right, is we want a network that is secure, that is robust, that is lean, that is globally decentralized, that is censorship resistant, and that has all of the properties that people have been really excited about blockchains for having, basically since the beginning with Bitcoin. But then, given these constraints, we want something that is fast, we want something that is scalable, so that applications that wants to benefit from these properties actually have the space and actually have the ability to do that. So 2025, 2026, this is the scalability arc. So the gas limit, which is a measure of how many transactions Ethereum can process, has actually already increased by 50% this year. So Ethereum can already process 50% more transactions than it could at the start of the year. There is a movement to increase the gas limit to 60 million. So this is this voting process that the nodes in the Ethereum network need to do. And so, like about a quarter of them are already voting for 60. I think this number is going to keep increasing. And over the course of 2026, we're going to have a bunch of EIPs that make it possible for the Ethereum network to safely handle a larger amount of scale, while at the same time preserving decentralization, while preserving the ability for regular nodes to function. So EIP 7732 enshrines proposer-builder separation. This has a lot of different effects. One of the effects is basically that it makes it possible for nodes to spend a much larger portion of the slot processing a block without this compromising the network's decentralization and like heavily favoring centralized nodes over decentralized nodes. And then block level access lists. So block level access lists basically mean that every node except for the original node that created a block is able to process the block in parallel. So who here remembers, has heard people complaining that the EVM sucks because it has no parallelization? So with block level access list, like actually for every node except the node that creates this block, the problem is like basically to a large extent solved, which is like really fascinating. So both of these things, they will enable further safe gas limit increases that will make Ethereum much more performant and much more capable of handling high throughput applications at the end of next year than even it will be at the end of this year. So huge amount of amazing scalability work done by the Ethereum protocol research team, done by the hardworking Ethereum client teams. Very excited about both of these things. Then another thing that I'm excited about, zkEVMs, return of the cult of the full node. So who here ran an Ethereum full node like 5 to 8 years ago? Who here runs an Ethereum full node today? Okay, so that's good. Actually, about the same number of people, which is, but also not nearly enough people. Now, I remember, like when I synced a full node most recently, it took 4 days. 4 days is a long time. It also takes over 1 terabyte on your hard drive. Also, to actually keep it running, you have to do like 400 milliseconds of computation, and it's intensive, and it drains your battery, and also it makes your hard drive die much more quickly. It's an expensive thing. zkEVMs, so this is based on zero-knowledge proofs, this technology that I talked about. They let you verify that a block is correct without doing all of the execution yourself. This is a technology that is no longer science fiction. It is now going to be alpha stage reality. So this is from ethproofs.org. There's already provers that are able to approve the Ethereum blocks in real time with I think some number of like low tens of consumer GPUs. So, and then that number is like shrinking very quickly with every couple of months. So we can reduce the computation requirements of a node to near zero. Now, bandwidth and storage and I/O costs, they stay, but they are reduced, right? But theoretically, if you have a laptop, or there's even phones that are big, that have enough space to hold the Ethereum state. Like, who here has a phone with like 512 gigs? Like, this is a thing, a few hands, right? Like, literally a phone. Like, that's a thing that exists now, right? Then you can actually start thinking about having a full node. So we can, I think, within 1 to 2 years, the number of people who will actually be able to have a full node will increase quite a bit, despite the scaling that is happening over the next 2 years. 2026 to 27, censorship resistance and decentralization upgrades. So Fossil basically allows basically like a medium-sized set of nodes to propose like effectively mini blocks every slot. And so this creates stronger guarantees that if you send a transaction, your transaction can get included quickly. Also, ongoing work with account abstraction, basically making sure that you can have more powerful smart wallets, more powerful wallets with better forms of security, the ability to do things like changing your keys, even support for some of the privacy protocols we're talking about this week, and do all of this without dependence on intermediaries. So a lot of good things here. Then the longer term, Justin's team has been working on Lean Ethereum, and Lean Ethereum is this kind of longer term effort, basically deeper improvements to make Ethereum efficient and secure for the long term, replacing a lot of suboptimal components with components that are known to be much closer to optimal. So really focusing on security, simplicity, optimality, and in parallel with adoption of zkVMs, which could include VMs that are much more optimized than the EVM, enabling the next order of magnitude of scaling L1. So themes in Lean Ethereum: optimized, fast, zk-friendly VM, quantum resistance everywhere, zk-friendly hash function. So currently the leading contender is Poseidon. There is an active effort to learn as much as we can about Poseidon's security and bounties for breaking it. So there's a lot of academic research that's going in to ensure that its robustness, formally verifying everything, also optimal consensus, so much faster finality, also a available chain with fast slots. So a lot of different pieces where we basically learn from everything that we've managed to do in the last 5 years. We learn from our mistakes in the last 5 years, and we also properly include technologies that have only become really possible and available in the last 5 years, and even some that are bleeding edge right now. Also user-level work, right? So trustless user experience. This includes privacy. This includes security. So on the privacy side, people talk about privacy as meaning, basically ZK proofs that protect your data on chain, but it's this really much bigger piece, right? It includes protecting your privacy from RPC nodes that you're getting your data from. It includes network level privacy. It includes privacy for voting. It includes improving privacy in DeFi. So a lot of even things like private account abstraction. Also security. So light clients are improving, so Helios is improving. Also, software supply chain dependencies. Basically, how do we reduce the amount of software that we that have to depend on that could, if it has a bug, break the whole thing? On-chain version control. So can we do things like manage our software versions on-chain? Basically, move away from an environment where the front-end stuff depends on a server, and if someone hacks the server, they can take away everything. Multisig, social recovery wallets, hardware wallets, account abstraction, interoperability. So a lot of efforts, happening, and there's an event. I think events happening this week for the OIF effort, and also events happening for the EIL effort. Also, I mean, interoperability is a very kind of multi-dimensional problem. So Ethereum can be a standard bearer for a more free, open, and cooperative world enabled by permissionless open technology and decentralized trustless security. And it's a powerful technology. It's a technology that's rapidly becoming more powerful. And it's a technology that's a member of this wider suite of tools that are really growing in strength very quickly. And I think the Ethereum community and the Ethereum technology can really help bring this kind of much more free, open, and cooperative world into reality. So let's work together and make this happen. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Vitalik. I think everyone knows what the first question is going to be, so I'm going to go right ahead and ask it. Where can we get those glasses?
I think they're on Amazon. Unfortunately, we haven't made decentralized Amazon yet, so hackathon idea.
Okay, so direct segue, similar question. How do you think of Ethereum's relationship with Wall Street?
How do I think of Ethereum's relationship to what?
Wall Street.
Wall Street. I mean, they're a user. I think we're in Ethereum. We're a pro user.
Awesome. And I guess you covered a lot about what Ethereum can be, where it is today. What do you think is an underrated thing that people could focus potentially a bit more on that extends the properties of Ethereum into the world?
Something people can focus on that extends the properties of Ethereum to the world?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of different dimensions to this, right? One of them is just real-world adoption of Ethereum itself, right? And so, the dream started with payments. And I remember in 2013, I was really excited. There was this district in Berlin, the Bitcoin Kiez. Actually, who remembers the Bitcoin Kiez? There was this district in Kreuzberg in Berlin where a guy convinced 10 restaurants within a few hundred meters of each other to accept Bitcoin at the same time, and it turned into this basically Bitcoin culture neighborhood. And then there was just a lot of momentum around making payments with Bitcoin happen, but then for a few reasons at the same time it died off, right? I think transaction fees rising were a big one. We have the technology to make payments really work again, right? And there's a lot of demands to make crypto payments work again. Actually, in Buenos Aires, there's even a lot of physical locations that accept ETH and Ethereum-based stables and other stables for payment, right? So, even those kinds of real-world uses, I think, are good. And then the other thing is, you look at some of the underlying suite of technologies, and for any kind of domain, whether it's communications or governance or even lower levels of the stack, operating systems, even hardware, basically think with the principles in mind that we talked about today. Think about how to make things that are more open, make things that minimize the need for trust, things that protect users, and also at the same time think about some of these newer technologies, including blockchains, including cryptography, that enable going much further in that direction than we did before. And really, there's just so much that can be done there as well.
What is the most important skill for both new and old cohorts of Ethereum to get better trained in or be better at?
I mean, I think it does, like, depend on like who you are, but I think communities like ours, it's always healthy to be well-rounded, right? I think it's always healthy to kind of like poke your foot in at least a few different aspects of the space. So I'd encourage people here this week to like try at least once paying for a coffee in ETH. At the same time, if you don't have a wallet, install a wallet. Like if you haven't used a dApp, use a dApp. If like you have never written a smart contract, try like writing a smart contract. Like even if you're up for it, even like try learning how like even one of the underlying protocols works. And like also like look into like how all of these technologies kind of interact with like the wider world, and I think Argentina's been a great place for that, and there's been a lot of adoption at like all of the different levels of the stack. So I think it's valuable to like really understand like some of all of those things.
Another question we had is, how did you come up with the name Ethereum?
So I think I was like browsing a list of elements from science fiction, and I thought this one sounds nice.
Okay, awesome. What about the logo? Similar?
Okay, so this is a fun story. Like, I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I think what happened is like the reason why Ethereum was on that list of elements from science fiction is because there was this Japanese movie called Castle in the Sky, and in that movie, one of the central objects was the Ethereum crystal. The Ethereum crystal is like the thing that made the castle float. And I had no idea this is where it was from, but then I called it Ethereum, and then I think our artist like probably knew about the movie and then like made the logo in the shape of an Ethereum crystal. And then I remember like actually learning about and watching the movie for the first time literally 5 years after that, and I'm like, whoa, the crystal actually looks like the logo.
Awesome. I think that's all the questions that we have. Do you have anything else that you want to tell the community? Any lunch recommendations?
Eat good food. Make sure to drink water. Make sure to like spend lots of time outside and like enjoy good air. Like air is also one of the 4 elements. Important that it's clean. And enjoy your week.
Thank you so much, Vitalik. Awesome. So now we have a little break. Please enjoy your lunch. There's a bunch of incredible food outside.